Breaking news just into the CNN newsroom. Actor and comedian Bob Saget has died at the age of 65. Now, this news just breaking moments ago. CNN chief media correspondent Brian Stelter, CNN media analyst Bill Carter, and CNN entertainment reporter Chloe Milas. Brian, I want to start with you. You guys all join me right now. This is just kind of coming across the wire as we speak. Brian, I'll start with you. What do we know about this very famous comedian's death?
Yes, very sad news from Orlando, Florida. The Orange County Sheriff's Office confirms that actor and comedian Bob Saget was found dead a few hours ago in an Orlando hotel room. The statement from the Sheriff's Office says deputies were called to the Ritz-Carlton Orlando in Grand Lakes, a call about an unresponsive man in a hotel room. The man was identified as Robert Saget, that's Bob Saget, and pronounced dead on scene. The authorities say there are no signs of foul play or drug use in this case. That's according to the detectives on the scene. We know, Phil, that Bob Saget had been on tour recently. He was on tour in Florida, performing for an audience that loved to see him on Saturday night. And then we know he was found dead in a hotel room this afternoon, Sunday afternoon, in Orlando.
And Bill, you know, I think everybody obviously knows Bob Saget from Full House, but he had an expansive career that covered so much more than that. Kind of lay out who Bob Saget was.
Well, he was kind of fascinating career, actually. He was a successful stand-up. He actually did a stint on the morning show on CBS for a while. And, of course, he did The Voice on How I Met Your Mother. He was the guy who was the host of America's Funniest Home Videos. He directed movies, and he had gone back to stand-up. And I have to say, I knew Bob a little bit. I interviewed him several times. He was in our documentary on the history of the sitcom. Terrifically engaging guy, very sweet guy. And it's really sad. I mean, I would never have expected this. He just was so full of life, that guy. And I enjoyed talking to him a lot. I followed him on Twitter. I knew he was on tour. And he just was a guy who I think everybody found just appealing, an appealing personality.
And Chloe, I think what's most fascinating is, you know, his cultural resonance over the course of the last decade or so, which went so far beyond. You know, Bill lays out his career, which is obviously expansive in and of itself. But you talk about his roles and appearances on Entourage. Like, he became the opposite of who he was on Full House in so many different appearances, which made it so hilarious in every sense of the way. Talk about kind of who he was, particularly in this kind of latter part of his career.
Look, this is heartbreaking for so many of us, including myself, who grew up with Bob Saget, who was Danny Tanner, America's Dad. Yes, you are alluding to maybe his book he wrote, Dirty Dad. He played an extreme version of himself on HBO's Entourage. He had really dirty humor. And the people that went to his comedy shows, his stand-up comedy shows, like Brian Stelter was talking about, how he was, you know, touring all over Florida, that's what they turned up for. His profane, vulgar sense of humor, the antithesis of America's Dad. But I think that juxtaposition right there is just what made Bob Saget such an interesting individual. But he had a real resurgence with the Netflix reboot of Fuller House, where a whole new audience of people fell in love with Bob Saget. His sense of humor, I've been scrolling on Twitter for the last few minutes to see if any of his co-stars like Lori Loughlin, Candace Cameron Bure, the Olsen twins, nobody yet has posted anything about his death. But again, you know, beloved by so many different types of people, so many different followers of fans that he had who knew him for different reasons, but loved him nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, that's always been the most interesting thing for me. You know, it's a tragic loss of an individual who kind of could play so many different roles in terms of who he was, but there was none more, I think, poignant to some degree than his role on Full House. It was a different time in TV. It was a different time in America, and he kind of represented almost the first family to some degree for a lot of people.
I think that's absolutely true. Full House came on the air in 1987 and went on for 8 years and then continued on for many years thereafter in reruns and in syndication, etc. We don't have television shows like Full House anymore that appeal to tens of millions of people who all watch at the same time. And that created a type of success and fame for Bob Saget that is now incredibly, vanishingly rare in the entertainment world. You know, he was, as Chloe said, he was Danny Tanner. He was America's dad through the late 80s, through the 90s. And then later, he twisted on that fame. He was able to capitalize and take a turn in different direction later. But the Full House phenomenon was massive. And then later, you know, later in the 90s, actually, that's not true. In the, I think, late 80s and throughout the 90s, he hosted America's Funniest Home Videos. Again, another staple of television that doesn't really exist in this environment anymore. It is a shell of its former self. But in the pre-YouTube era, America's Funniest Home Videos, a huge phenomenon. And that was really Bob Saget identified with it throughout the 90s. That is why so many people are hearing this news shocked tonight. He was only 65 years old, and as I mentioned, found dead in a hotel room in Orlando.
Yeah, and Bill, I want to jump off that, and obviously Brian gets back to the critical point here, a tragic loss, a tragic death of Bob Saget, but he was kind of an ever-present figure in living rooms. Whether it was Full House, whether it was Funniest Home Videos, he was always there, and you just don't see that anymore because of the way the medium has changed, because of the way television has changed. And I guess to the extent that you can crystallize what he was then and why that mattered so much, how would you do it?
Well, I would do it this way. At his peak, he was starring in Full House, and America's children were watching that avidly. My children were watching it avidly. We all watched it together. Another phenomenon that doesn't happen. At the same time, he was on America's Funniest Home Videos. I don't know anyone else who has achieved this. Probably someone will come up with someone. But he had 2 top 10 shows that he was in at the same time. That is extraordinary and one of a kind of thing. And it just showed his versatility and his appeal. And you just can't imagine something like that happening again. It was so unique and special. And the thing about Bob was, you know, he was not changed by it. I think he appreciated how special and lucky it was that he was an effective stand-up, and all of this happened to him. And he just took the ride. He enjoyed the ride. He reveled in the ride. And he was thoughtful about it. He was thoughtful about his role as a father that kids looked up to. And he talked about it very seriously, even though he was a comedian. I thought he was a guy who really wound up accidentally becoming enormously famous and really appreciated it.
And he almost carried himself that way, which I think was probably part of his appeal. Chloe, you have your pulse on kind of the current cultural moment better than anybody I know or follow. What's
Thank you.
It's true.
I would argue that's Brian. That's Brian Stelter. I've just been wanting to say this. So I interviewed Jeff Franklin, the creator of Full House, sometime during the pandemic, and we were talking about Full House was like Friends. And I don't want to get emotional here, but like, I was 1 year old, right, in 1987. I'm the same age as the Olsen twins, for context. I'm 35. I grew up watching both of the shows that Bill is talking about with my family in front of the television set with our bunny ears, trying to get the signal to work, right? So that was, those are my peers, right? And so Danny Tanner was my dad. He was everybody's dad, right? And so Jeff Franklin, the creator of Full House, was telling me that, you know, it was this cultural phenomenon where people in other countries learned English by watching Full House, right? That this wasn't just some show that we watched here in the United States. This was something that was playing on for years in syndication and reruns all over the world. And I think that that is why when people are going to find out about the news of Bob Saget, he's not just America's dad, he was the world's dad, right? And that might sound heavy, but it's really the truth. And so a lot of people are going to be deeply affected by this tragic loss at such an early age, you know, and like Brian said, it's really important to point out that the authorities are saying that there's no foul play involved and no known drug use involved, right? So we're still waiting to get those details, but such a loss. And again, I'm just waiting to see what his co-stars are going to be saying, like John Stamos and others.